Picture it. You're living in Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, maybe even Clarendon, any of the parishes, as a matter of fact, on the eastern side of the island, and you get a call that there is someone at the airport who needs to be picked up. It could also possibly be that you're the one that's traveling and you need to get to the airport. The most logical airport that you're going to be going to is the Norman Manley International Airport. And to get there, you have to, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, drive on the Palisadoes. The Palisadoes is a narrow strip of road that connects Kingston to the airport, Norman Manley International Airport that is, and also to Port Royal. Now, did you know that the Palisadoes as we know it today never existed until a couple thousand years ago? Yes, it's true. The Palisadoes as we know it did not exist. Instead, what you found happening was Port Royal was like a little island out there by itself. Hence, we have those smaller keys like Maiden Key, Goat Key, Line Key. Port Royal was just a little island by itself. And to connect the mainland to Port Royal, they basically, in our layman terms, dump up the sand. So this dumped up sand eventually hardened over time, and there was the possibility of getting some sort of structure on it that you could use to travel back and forth. Much easier than the ferry, don't you think? If you left the island a couple decades ago, maybe about 2010 or before, or maybe even long before that, but if you left the island some time ago, what you're now seeing would appear a bit strange, I'm sure. There's a very good reason for that. Now, let's go back in time a bit though. You can well imagine that if the land was not stable from the beginning, there would be some issues with it over time. One of those issues is the hurricane factor that we have in Jamaica. And so, even though they made this Palisadoes to connect the mainland to Port Royal and then they eventually built the airport, it has faced its share of trials over the years. There was once upon a time that the Palisadoes was actually cut off in 5 different places after a major hurricane. Can you imagine 5 different breaches? So even if you fix one, you still had 4 others to contend with. But that is one of the things that tends to happen to the Palisadoes. We had a hurricane some years ago, over a decade ago, and that hurricane, to my recollection, was so massive that it did indeed cut off the Palisadoes. So you can imagine Port Royal and the airport being disconnected from the rest of the island. That was one of the trials, and that was one of the reasons why you now see the Palisadoes looking like what it does today. In 2010, massive road work was undertaken on the Palisadoes to raise the level and to install boulders along the edges to prevent the sea from coming over. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's a massive structure and it looks pretty intriguing right now. There is a jogging path, a biking trail as well for persons who are into fitness. It's approximately about 5 kilometers from the Harborview roundabout to the airport roundabout. And so there has been that improvement that has taken place. But who knows? For now, it is okay. But with climate change, the sea levels rising, anything is possible. But I'm sure you didn't know all of what I just said about the Palisadoes. But now you do. Did you really think we brought you all that way just to drive out on the Palisadoes? Come on, guys, you should know us better than that by now. When Bevianas is on the road, you're going to see the road. And so on to our next stop. See you in a few. Picture it. Somewhere in the 1400s, we have this city in the Caribbean, the largest city in the Caribbean, I must add, called Port Royal. But what do we really know about Port Royal? One of the main things about Port Royal is that we have Fort Charles. Now, Fort Charles was built at the entrance of the Kingston Harbour, and it is built in the shape of a ship. When the English gained control of Jamaica under Sir Henry Morgan in 1655, they built Fort Charles. At first it was called Fort Cromwell. Fort Charles is the first of 6 forts to be built in Jamaica. Now, this is a very popular tourist attraction, and if you want to know more, just pay them a visit. They do have tours, and you will be blown away, I'm sure, by the history behind what you will find behind those walls. As we leave Fort Charles behind, we move into a very short journey to the city or the town or the village of Port Royal. Now, Port Royal was once known as the wickedest city on earth. Would you look at these quiet, ordinary folk? You would never have guessed that they had such a history, did you? Port Royal was once the largest city in the entire Caribbean. It was inhabited by pirates, and over time, if you follow the history of the Caribbean and the history of Jamaica in particular, you would know that the island passed through several conquerors, if you want to call it that, and eventually they ended up in the hands of the British in 1655. It was a city that was very rich, very vibrant, and it engaged a lot of attention in terms of if you wanted to have a good time, Port Royal was the place to be. Sadly, it was not going to last forever. In 1692, I believe it was, there was a massive earthquake. And what that earthquake did was it sank 2/3 of the city underwater. But being the resilient people that we Jamaicans are known to be, although we weren't really Jamaicans at the time, so to speak, but being resilient, they tried to rebuild several times, and each attempt was met by disaster after disaster, whether it was an earthquake, a flood, or a hurricane. The final blow was in 1907 that had another earthquake that sank some of the remaining portions. So what you're actually seeing of Port Royal today is but a fraction, a very small fraction of what the entire city was like. There are plans underway presently to develop the area as a tourist attraction. And just before 2020 occurred, there were very strong plans underway for that. But if you want to know more about Port Royal, Google is always your friend. And if you find yourself in Jamaica, feel free to take a drive and pay them a visit. It will be worth it. Our Creator, our Eternal Father, is very wise. Did you know that there's no mistake in anything that He has created? Some of us would look on this vegetation and call it bush, swamp, alligator or crocodile infested waters, mosquitoes, breeding ground, all of what you want to say about it. But remember that it was made by the Creator and it was made for a purpose. The mangroves are home to many species of birds, fish. It's a breeding ground for crabs and oysters. Mangroves also help to preserve the coastline, they prevent erosion, and they absorb storm surges, and they act as a buffer between the open sea and the land. They have a dense root system that help to bind and build up the soil, and they also help to improve the water quality. Sadly, the mangroves are threatened, and they are threatened mainly because of us. The human impact is devastating in some places. There is dredging, there is water pollution, and when you clear the mangrove forests, you are destroying natural habitats. On a far larger scale, what you find happening when you clear away the mangroves is that you are creating an imbalance in the ecosystem, so to speak, because clearing these mangroves actually releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and this adds to the climate change issues that we're facing. It's almost as if you have dropped a pebble in a pool of water, and the ripple effects are endless. And so on a quiet Sunday afternoon, if you feel like you want to drive out, hop in the vehicle, take a friend or two, make a right turn at the Harborview roundabout, go right around the airplane tail, and keep going until you hear a voice that drive no more. Thank you for joining us for this brief edition of Bevianas Chronicles. As usual, road is out there to do, road is going to be done. And we hope that you did enjoy your Palisadoes and Port Royal flashbacks today. Until next time, bye.